As various observer groups continued to give observer accounts of what transpired at polling units, the NDI and IRI, made up of 20-person mission with 11 member countries, have also issued a final statement on the governorship elections. While addressing journalists in Abuja, the NDI and IRI have condemned the killings emanating from electoral violence during the governorship and state houses of assembly elections. The NDI and IRI called for the prosecution of the perpetrators of such violence, resulting into deaths of innocent Nigerians.
My name is John Tomaszewski. I'm the Africa Regional Director for IRI based in Washington, D.C. And opposite me is my colleague, Dr. Christopher Muñoz. He is the Senior Regional Director for Africa at the National Democratic Institute. IRI and NDI have deployed a joint mission to observe the March 9th state-level elections, and this is part of a larger process that we've been undertaking for quite some time. Both IRI and NDI are nonpartisan, non-governmental organizations that support and strengthen democratic institutions and practices worldwide. The institutes are not new to observing elections. Collectively, our organizations have observed more than 200 elections in more than 50 countries over the last 30 years. So we're not rookies at this, and we've seen all sizes and shapes and colors of different elections, and certainly these elections were one to watch from our perspective.
Some polling units, intimidation of observers, voters, journalists, and some innocent Nigerians were also observed.
Delegation observed were marred by irregularities, instances of intimidation, vote buying, and violent acts during the voting, counting, and collation processes in some places. Incidents of violence and disruption to the balloting process were observed by our delegates in Lagos, Benue, Rivers, and Nasarawa states. The delegation was informed of the loss of life as a result of Election Day violence. The mission deplores these losses and expresses its deepest condolences to the bereaved and to the Nigerian people. These actions and the impunity with which some electoral actors conducted themselves, including some polling agents and members of the military, undermine citizen confidence in elections and threaten the legitimacy of Nigeria's democracy. In the days leading up to the March 9 elections, many states still grappled with inconclusive candidate selection processes, uncertainty about parties to appear on the ballot, and pending litigation on these matters. The confusion generated by this uncertainty hampered effective campaigning and hence hindered voters' ability to make informed choices on Election Day. For the most part, political parties were unable to resolve disputes emanating from party primaries and candidate selection processes through internal mechanisms. As a result, many aggrieved individuals petitioned courts of law for redress, overtaxing INEC and the country's legal system. Something to think about as we go into issues of future electoral reform. Moreover, the intense focus on federal campaigns for the presidency and National Assembly so close to the state-level polls overshadowed local campaigns and may have also undermined the mobilization of voters for the March 9 elections.
Just to let you know, in case you didn't know, the NDI and IRI have a track record for championing the cause of women participation in politics, so they did not shy away from pointing out that the Nigerian government has not applied the 35% affirmative action principle included in the 2006 National Gender Policy, and also emphasized the need for a revisit to the long-abandoned bill at the National Assembly since 2010, that is, Gender and Equality Bill.
There were very few women winning positions on the tickets fielded by major parties for the gubernatorial and state House of Assembly polls. Despite being Africa's largest democracy, Nigeria has the lowest representation of women in national legislative office of any country on the continent. And this representation will likely fall below 5% following the February 23rd National Assembly vote. And pay attention here. This is not a record to be proud of.
The NDI, however, made some recommendations to strengthen the credibility of electoral processes and safeguard Nigeria's democratic gains over the past 2 decades.
Adopt and apply measures to achieve the 35% affirmative action for women in both elective and appointive posts as envisioned in the 2006 National Gender Policy. In the spirit of international cooperation, the IRI NDI mission offers the following recommendations for consideration. To the executive branch of government, expedite the adoption of comprehensive electoral reforms in order to lay the groundwork for an improved electoral framework. Implement fully and expeditiously the recommendations of Nigerian-led reform initiatives, such as the reports from the US Commission of 2008 and the Namani Committee of 2017, and create appropriate institutions to oversee political parties and prosecute electoral offenses, responsibilities that currently impede INEC's focus on election administration. Publish complete and detailed state-level results as well as national results in a timely manner. Conduct a comprehensive review of the conduct of the 2019 polls that involves a full spectrum of election stakeholders. Review the recommendations from credible domestic and international observer groups to improve the electoral framework and conduct of elections. Opportunities Bill. To INEC, publish complete and detailed state-level results as well as national results in a timely manner. Conduct a comprehensive review of the conduct of the 2019 polls that involves a full spectrum of election stakeholders. Review the recommendations from credible domestic and international observer groups to improve the electoral framework and conduct of elections. Enhance communications and data management between the state and national levels to ensure that information about election processes and results are shared with the public in a timely and transparent manner. Reconsider the order and timing of general elections in Nigeria to ensure sufficient time for election preparations and to promote voter participation and engagement at both the grassroots and national levels. Fully empower presiding officers at polling sites to exercise their authority to act on election offenses when they occur. To political parties and candidates, as stated in the NDI IRI February 25th statement, there is an urgent need to strengthen mechanisms for internal democracy, especially to encourage leadership of women and youth. Develop internal mechanisms for effective resolution of intra-party disputes. Work across party lines to identify common priorities and support electoral reform. Abandon electoral practices such as voter intimidation, vote buying, and other disruptions of the election process that undermine citizen confidence in elections and democratic governance. To civil society, convene national and state-level multi-stakeholder dialogues to draw lessons from the 2019 election process and galvanize broad-based public support for electoral reform. Drawing upon lessons learned from the Not Too Young to Run campaign and the passage of the Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities (Prohibition Act), create a broad-based coalition and aggressively champion coordinated advocacy efforts to increase the political participation of women. Our recommendations to various stakeholders. The IRI NDI delegation heard from many Nigerians that in comparing the conduct of the 2019 polls to the conduct of the 2015 polls, they are disappointed with the lack of progress in election administration and with the performance of political parties in elections.
The long-awaited 2019 general elections have come and winding down, but observers like the IRI and NDI stakeholders hope that lessons learned during the elections will be geared towards improving the quality of the electoral process in Nigeria and in the long run sustaining a true democracy. Toyin Ajolore, reporting for On Duty TV, Abuja, Nigeria.